always turning to Allah at any given stage. But taking Ramadan into consideration, if we are turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how do we follow their example? If we look at the example of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna Ibrahim lahalimun awwahum munib. Indeed, Abraham was forbearing, grieving, and frequently returning to Allah. Awwahum munib. He was always returning to Allah. If we look at the example of Dawood alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again says in the Quran, and he asked forgiveness of his Lord, and fell down bowing in prostration, and turned repentance to Allah. My brothers, these are messengers. If we look at another example, again, of Shu'aib alayhi salam, and when he turned to Allah, he said, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. And my success is not but through Allah. عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. Upon him I have relied, and to him I return. And if we look at the best of examples, my brothers and sisters, the best of men, if we look at the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying in Surah Al-Shura, ذَلِكُمُ اللَّهُ رَبِّي عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَإِلَيْهِ أُنِيبُ. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that is Allah, my Lord. Upon him I have relied, and to him I turn back. My brothers and sisters, these are people who did not have to turn on a daily in forgiveness. Did the prophets have to turn in forgiveness to Allah? They did not have to turn to forgiveness on a daily, but they knew they had to turn to him and come closer to him to fully gain the reward for the akhirah, for them to fully have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what we need to gear up to towards, my brothers if we and sisters. If we are to be gaining the relationship as we come closer to Ramadan, we are turning to Allah now. We are not waiting for the last few weeks when the buzz happens and the shopping starts and everything starts. No. We are starting now. We are turning to Allah and coming closer to Him. And why did I start with the prophets and messengers? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Luqman, and follow the way of those who turn back to me in repentance. If we follow the best of examples, then we will be amongst the best of people. My brothers and sisters, of course, when we said about starting with the good deeds from now, we see the level that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase us on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Straight away, the people who have been doing good deeds, they will be recognized. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says on the authority of Abdullah bin Mas'ud, he says, they will be given their light, the nur, each according to their deeds. Some of them will be given a light in their hands as enormous as the mountain, and others will be given a light that is less than that. Every person will have a nur that he will be carrying based on the a'mal al-salihah, on the good deeds that he has been performing throughout his life till the moment he comes in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for us to be carrying that light in that dark stage, when we are unsure, uncertain of what will be happening, this is the best of ways for us to see how we can be gathering our good deeds. Of course, we know through our Arkanul Islam, through our pillars of Islam, is the foundation of how we build ourselves as a good person. We see this beautiful hadith when a man came to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to him, Ya Rasulullah, I pray, I give my zakah, I do my qiyam, I do all my obligatory prayers and obligatory deeds. What more do I need to do for me to be amongst those people who are entering Jannah? And the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that is enough. As in, the basics is what you need to be starting with. And in this gathering of Quran, my brothers, we want to make sure that our basic is integrally the Quran as well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says of this in Surah Al-Shura, and thus we have revealed to you an inspiration of our command. You did not know what is the book or what is faith, but we have made it a light by which we guide whom we will of our servants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the one who takes the Quran as a part of his life, takes it a part of their faith, then they will be truly guided to wherever their destination may be. What does this mean? That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow us to be guided in accordance. Now, my brothers, How do we start making small steps towards coming to this light? And how do we make the Quran an integral part? I'm not saying we have to get to the level of Qari Nuaina overnight. I'm not saying that we have to all become a Hafiz overnight. There is a big task for anyone who is wishing to do this. But making small steps. Let's take an example from the hadith, my brothers, of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There was an occasion when the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was sitting with Jibreel alayhi salam. He was sitting in the company of Jibreel and he was discussing of the deen, he was talking of the Quran and he was learning from him. And all of a sudden, Jibreel alayhi salam, he looked up to the sky. He stopped talking and he looked up to the sky. And he heard a creaking noise. You know, a creak, the noise, the slow noise that happens when something is moving. And then Jibreel stopped and he said, this is a gate in heaven that has been opened, but it was never opened before. So then the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is curious. What do you mean this gate is open? There are many gates in Jannah. We know there are numerous gates for the one who fasts, for the so on and so forth. So while Jibreel was discussing this, an angel came down from this gate. An angel descended upon earth from this gate. And Jibreel alayhi salam said to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, this is an angel who came down to the earth who had never come down before. This angel, this is the first time he has set foot on this world. He has never been commanded to come to this world before by Allah, by any creation. And then when Jibreel came Jibreel introduced this man, and then this angel, and the angel he greeted him. The angel greeted him and said, Assalamu alayka. Both of them he gave salam to them. Two noors, Nuaina, given to you, which have not been given to any prophet before you. The opening of the book, Al-Fatiha, and the concluding verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. You will never recite a single letter of them, but you will be granted a reward. So the angel, he spoke to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and said, take these two noors, one of them is Surah Al-Fatiha, and the other one is the ending verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. No one has been given this light, and no one will recite any of these verses except that you will be granted a reward. Subhanallah, my brothers. No prophet can you imagine before the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had been given this reward. And what is it, my brothers? Surah Al-Fatiha. How many times do we read Surah Al-Fatiha on a daily? Minimum 17 times just in our general salah. For every single time we are reading this surah, we are gaining a reward that no one else has ever, in history, of course, in religious history, has ever received this reward. And just by reading the awakhir ayat of the last verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. And this was a bounty given to the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So my brothers, take this small example and see, how do I incorporate a small amount of Quran into my life? If we take another example, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and this is of course of Surah Al-Kahf, the cave, where we know of the importance of reading it on every single Friday. How many of us can genuinely say, every Friday I make sure I read it without forgetting? The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whoever recites Surah Al-Kahf on Friday will have a light shining for him from one Friday to the next. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him a light in his heart and in all his affairs. And another light that will glitter of his good deeds. Subhanallah, my brothers. This is just by reading a surah, reading a chapter of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you a nur that will protect you from one Friday to the next. This is again another small step that we can take towards coming closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Quran. My brothers, I know you are all in anticipation of the beautiful Quran that is about to be in front of you as well, recited bi'idhnillah. But one of the few last reminders that I wanted to give, inshallah, is how do we make it practically in our life every single day? Yes, we said reading Surah Al-Fatiha, reading the last verse of Surah Al-Baqarah, making sure we read Surah Al-Kahf on Friday. But collectively, in our individual lives, and from our individual lives, how do we make it an integral part of our life? We need to look at the example of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us and what the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has told us. First and foremost, my brothers, we know the days of Ramadan, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has phrased it, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ. They are limited days, they're countable days. They're not extreme amount, 29, 30 or so days. So when we prepare for it, we must make sure we are preparing for every single day. First and foremost, my brothers, make sure in your own homes, in your own spaces, that the Quran is being recited on a regular basis. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, my brothers, say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, send your blessings upon our Prophet always. He said, لا تجعلوا بيوتكم مقابر. Do not allow your houses to be like the graveyard. What does this mean, my brothers? When we recite the Quran, there is barakah in our house, there is blessings in our house. When the house is silent of Quran, no one reciting it, not Quran being played, and so on and so forth, then it becomes like a graveyard, the way the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam compares it. The graveyard is silent. There is no one calling upon Allah. They all have, their chance has gone. So build that first stage by introducing Quran into your homes on a daily. Yes, we have the fantastic opportunity to gather here in the masjid, in the house of Allah. But take this, export it today into your own houses. This is the first step, my brothers. The second step, my brothers, is that we need to find a time that we give dedicated to the Quran in our daily life. What do I mean by that? We all have a busy day. I appreciate that and I acknowledge that we all have different things going on every single day. We all like to think of ourselves as very busy when we look at our own timetables. But the best thing that we can do is find the time that there is most barakah in the Quran. And we need to look at in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل وقرآن الفجر. What does this mean, my brothers? Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say Qur'an al-Fajr? For anyone who speaks Arabic or is familiar with the Arabic language, this is an idafa structure. This is a structure of possession. Qur'an al-Fajr, the Qur'an of Fajr. There is no other place there is an idafa structure with the Qur'an here. It is specifically to do with Fajr. Why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say Qur'an al-Fajr? Why not Qur'an al-Asr? Why not Qur'an al-Maghrib? If you think about it, my brothers, what is very beautiful about the time of Fajr? At Fajr time, who is watching us? No one. Simply put, no one is watching us except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we come to the masjid during the rest of the day, maybe someone will see us. Maybe the next door neighbor, the uncle will see you praying and say, MashaAllah, very good young man. This lovely, an auntie may say, this lovely sister always coming and praying. Maybe when you, do a good deed, someone will catch you, doing this good deed. But at Fajr time, my brothers, how many people are watching us? Our family members watching us. Everyone's too tired. Everyone just wants to pray and, start the day or rest a little more. And they get too busy. And this is why the Quran al-Fajr has a specific status. Because those who wake up for the Quran al-Fajr, the recitation of the Quran al-Fajr, are usually the most sincere in their recitation of the Quran. How many of us can say, genuinely after Fajr, we will start making 5 minutes for tilawat al-Quran? Can we make an intention for that? Inshallah. Because no one will be watching. I won't be there, my brother. Other people won't be there. You will be there, and Allah will be there. So follow on this verse. وَقُرْآنَ الْفَجْرِ. Make the Quran a part of your beginning, your first most day. Do not make, just your social media. You wake up straight away, checking your your social media, what status is, and who's messaged you. This may be important other ways, but not at that moment, my brothers. The Quran is the most pressing, unless there is an emergency which has to be acted on that second. The third thing that we want to look at, my brothers, and hopefully, inshallah, the final thing, is make the Quran a part of your family. What do I mean by this, my brothers? Make sure that every single person in your house is taking part in their action of reading Quran and coming closer towards it. Now let's take a very beautiful final example. And this example, my brothers, is so moving. Because many times when we do good deeds, we just do them on our own. We take the example of Anas bin Malik, radiallahu anhu. When Anas bin Malik, he used to read the Quran, he used to read it very often. He used to finish a khatam on a regular. Not like, sometimes we think we'll do it in a year or we'll do it in Ramadan. No, he used to finish khatam on a regular basis. Some say even on a weekly basis. On one occasion, Anas bin Malik, he was reading the khatam al-Quran and it was late in the night. He was about to finish the khatam al-Quran. Okay? How exciting is that, my brothers, when you finish the khatam? You realize, subhanAllah, I've come nearly 30 juz in the Quran. I'm about to finish it. And I'm about to gain the ajr of every single letter. They're all rewards. Alifun wa mimun wa lamun wa mimun. Every single letter has a reward, the way Rasulullah said. But Anas bin Malik, before he was about to finish, the narration says, وَبَقَّى. He stopped. He stopped and he left his completion of the Khatm al-Quran. And what did he do? He awaited the morning when every single member of his family awoke. He gathered his family and he said, let us all complete this Khatm together. Subhanallah. Why? Because he wanted every single member of his family to gain the ajr of the Khatm. How many of us can say we've sat our whole family down to complete a Khatm together? Even if you've not done a complete Khatm, my brother, take it upon us to include our family at any stage of the Quran and make it a part of your life. Because the final thing, my brothers, is that the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, الصيام والقرآن يشفعان للعبد. What does this mean? The Quran and the fasting will intercede for the believer on the day of reckoning. The Quran will come, my brothers, and say, رَبِّ مَنَعَتَهُ بِالنَّوْمِ فَشَفَّعْنِي. This is your servant. He left his sleep, he left everything of the night, and he gave it to the Quran. So, let me speak on his behalf. The Quran will come and say that, my brothers. Who better can we have as a backup, or as a protector, or as a companion on Yawm al-Qiyamah than the Quran? So my brothers, inshallah, we will conclude our little nasiha here, first and foremost for myself, by asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of the Ahlul Quran. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be elevated in status because of the Quran, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to reach the highest levels of Firdaus through the Quran. Bi-idhnillah. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers. Jazakumullah khair. For those of you who have just joined us, we're here today with Shaykh Dr. Ahmad Nuaina, who's travelled all the way from Egypt to join us today. This event is organised today by Human Appeal, the charity, in conjunction with the masjid. Again, we'd like to give our thanks to the committee members for hosting us today. The program next will have a recitation from one of the students of the Shaykh today who's joined us, Shaykh Yusuf, who both studied abroad and is also a teacher of the Quran in this country, benefiting ourselves and our children, inshallah. So I'd like to invite Shaykh Yusuf. Following that, we'll have a short appeal to try and help our brothers and sisters in Syria suffering, and then we'll come to the final event and the main event of the day to listen to some qira'ah, inshallah, from our esteemed Shaykh today. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Shaykh Yusuf.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. واعتصموا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا. واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا. وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers. Jazakumullah khair first and foremost for being here with us today. Another thank you to the Masjid Committee and everyone who was involved in helping this program come together today. And a special thank you to our Shaykh Ahmad Nuaina for being with us today, his students and the Imams that are present with us. Now brothers, I'd first and foremost like to ask you to be very attentive, to be very, very patient over the next 5 or 10 minutes. And I promise I won't take more than that. And then we can enjoy the qira'at and benefit from it from our esteemed guest today. Now my brothers, my name is Ibrahim. I'm here on behalf of Human Appeal, the charity. But I'd rather say that I'm here on behalf of our brothers and sisters suffering across the world. Now, we hear a lot about the disasters around the world, about the death, the hunger and the suffering. And we hear about it so much so that it becomes like news we hear all the time, and like it's everyday news. And it's important, my brothers, to put ourselves in that position. To imagine that one day we're sitting at home and a disaster happens around us. And all of a sudden we lose our job and we're not able to provide for our families. And we fast forward a few months and we've lost our home because it's been destroyed. And fast forward a few more months, your clothes are torn and worn out and old, and your wife's and your children's. And not just this, you're sleeping in the cold every night, and your children are going to sleep hungry, and you don't know where the next morsel of food is going to come from, and you don't know what's around the corner which may hurt you or harm the life of your children, and you're completely helpless in protecting them. You have no law in the country, you have no system in the country, and you're helpless, but alhamdulillah you have Allah. This can happen, wallahi, to any of us. And I first and foremost am thankful to Allah that He's put us in the safety and the comfort that we're in. And it's important we remember that this is a safety and a comfort. And some of the ways we can show thankfulness to Allah is by remembering our brothers and sisters around the world. The Prophet ﷺ gave us an example. And the examples of the Quran and the examples of the Prophet are the best of examples. ﷺ. And he said to us that the example of the believers is like that of one body. A hadith we all know very well. And if part of the body aches or feels a pain, then the rest of the body responds, and it suffers from sleeplessness, and it suffers from a fever. And subhanAllah, look at this example, that it might be your finger that's not well, or it might be your eye that's not well, but the rest of the body doesn't think it's okay, it's far away, the rest of me can rest, and the rest of me doesn't have to think about it. The example is that the body can't even sleep, that it feels the same pain that one eye feels or that one finger feels, that it's in stress, that it wants to respond. Now brothers, this is the example of the believers. And I'm very well sure that we're in the masjid today and we read the Quran and we believe in Allah and His Prophet ﷺ. And with that, we believe that when our brothers and sisters are suffering across the world, then it's not just their problem, it's our problem. That it's not just their pain, it's our pain. And I'm here to tell you today, my brothers, that there is a part of our body that's been suffering for 8 years this year. From a population of a country that has 22 million people, 13 million of them are in need of aid right now. 5 million of them are internally displaced in that country. What this means is that these are families, women, men and children that don't have any homes, that are sleeping outside, that don't have any food or any work, that don't have medicine if their children get sick, that if a disaster happens close by and it happens to wound their leg or their arm or their body, that they have no way of getting any medical assistance. That if a sister is pregnant and needs to give birth, then she has to do it wherever she finds the best place to be able to do that. And this isn't 1 or 2 people, this is 5 million people, my brothers and sisters. 6 million of these 13 million that need aid have left the country. They left the country for a better life, for safety, for jobs, for security for themselves and their children. but they're faced with people that push them away and say you're not from us and you're a burden on us and you're too much for us to bring into our countries. Some of them have to drown in the ocean just because they're crossing the ocean for a better life. My brothers and sisters, just like it's heavy on my heart, I'm sure it's heavy on your heart. And it's something all of us want to change and do something about. And I'm sure that it gives you frustration and anger that you wish you had all of the wealth in the world there. And the most that is your responsibility is what you're able to do, my brothers. I'd like to share a verse from the Quran with you before I ask you for your help. But before that, I'd like to ask you, brothers, do you know the name of the country that I've been speaking about?
Or the Muslim world.
Well, specifically, what country am I speaking about, my brothers? It's Syria. Jazakumullah khair, my brothers. It's something we're all aware of. It's something that's in the news. And this year, 8 years of pain and suffering has been going on. And we don't know the end of it, my brothers. To bring the reality closer to mind, Allah describes the situation to us in the Quran. And Allah says to us in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم